Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Truthcast Podcast. I'm your host, Preach. Today we got with us another special guest joining us on the Truthcast Podcast. Um, let everybody know your name and let's get started.
Hi, my name is Jamie Brannon. I am a spoken word poet.
All right, Jamie. Before we get into your kind of career little thing you got, um, let's talk about what was who was you before Christ?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Let's talk about who was you before Christ.
So, I grew up in the church, so I always kind of knew who God was. Um, but I can kind of speak on like who I was before I like accepted Jesus for myself, because I think I sometimes like when we grow up in the church, it's really easy to be like, oh, my parents are saved, my parents brought me here, so I don't really need to accept God for myself. Um, I was very confused about my own relationship with God. So I think I was just very confused. I wasn't confident. I didn't have the confidence to walk in that. I didn't have the confidence to walk in my faith. And I was very unsure of what I was doing in my life. So I think that's like what I was before I accepted Christ as my own.
Facts. I think a lot of Christians that usually that's brought in the church, we always get that thought in our head. Mainly, we do because listen, if you get raised in something, it's easy just to follow in your parents' footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
So and then when you step out in society, people start to ask, and they start to question things. And they're like, hey, why are you saved? That and this, that and this. And
Yeah.
mainly, your what you're going to say is like, oh, I've been saved since I was 5 years old, this and that and this. I bought in the church and that and this. And some people are like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then some people could be like, you know what? You was raised and brought in the church. Have you tried to explore other things? Have you thought about, since I was raised in the church, you don't know no better. Why don't you try this and that and this and that and this? Um, there's going to be a lot of sinners going to hell, and I really do believe, a lot of them is going to be Christians that was raised in Christian homes, and um, that sometime little, you know in their life, they fell and they went away from God, because mainly Christians that's raised in Christianity, that's brought up in Christ, that know the truth. Those are the main people that fall away from God, and here's why: it's because mainly, maybe I won't even say maybe, most Christian parents are very strict. And as a child, you do not like being very strict. So once you go out inside, society and the world, it's going to be a very different environment than you was when you were at home. Um, and then once you go out, there's a lot of people, watch your friends and this and that and this, the people you hang around with and stuff like that. And then they will, if you don't hang around a good crowd, um, you know, hard faith, strong back, true believers in Christ. If you don't hang around people like that, if you hang out with the other side of the world, sinners, you would be, you're going, your your mindset's going to start, questioning everything, questioning your foundation, questioning your life, questioning your decisions you made when you was younger, because you're not gonna have, you're not gonna be really thinking, because everything is different when you step out.
Right.
And then once that happened, that falling away start to happen, and then you don't really come back to God. Now, for people that have been raised in a non-Christian home, and they seen the bad side of this world, and they know there's nothing good out there, and then they are searching for something that's very, that's for hope. They're searching for something for peace. They're searching for something for love. They're searching for something better than what they are in today.
Hmm.
Once they find that thing, they like, man, you need to try this, that, and this. Jesus is really weird, blah, 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 that, and this, that, and this. But as for a Christian person that, that always had that, they're not going to be grateful because they think there's something else out there. But yeah, do you have anything to add with that?
No, I think that's absolutely true. I think that when you grow up in the church, you don't know anything else. And so that's why it's really important for you to seek God for yourself, because once you seek God for yourself and you're out in that world, you know that there's nothing better. So, yeah.
Facts, facts, facts. Yeah, because it's like, as for a Christian, there's going to be, if you base your life, I'm just going to hang on with this subject for a second. If you base most of your life on what your parents and what your pastor taught you, and you do not have that personal relationship yourself, everything you got inside here is is by what somebody told you and what you heard from somebody else. If it was on YouTube, on the internet, from a local church, from your parents, wherever you got that's inside of you, that you speak out to people in public, but you don't know it, but you know it,
Mhm.
you know. But when there's gonna be some people that like, even if you've been studying for forever, like I've been studying like since I was little. So, but there was people that would challenge you so good it will make you scratch your head. It's like, okay, great. That's a good question. And there's, but for a person that that knows it but doesn't know it,
Mhm.
they gonna be, either they're gonna slip up, which is much likely they're gonna slip up, and they would, start to, like, oh, okay, maybe you are white, knowing that they're not white, but they're starting to think, you know what, maybe whatever I've been, believing from the past 15 or 18 or, 19 years, you know, maybe everything that I know is wrong. That's why, like, as you said in the first beginning, we really do need to have that personal relationship with Christ ourselves. Because if we just basing everything with what we know from our childhood or what we heard from our parents or from our pastor, and if you just base everything on that, your foundation is not solid. You do not have a foundation in Christ. Um, let's dive into what you do. So you're an artist, correct?
Yes,
Like
I'm a spoken word poet.
poet. So basically, what got you into poetry?
So I used to hate poetry because I hated the way that school taught it and everything. But then I experienced a poetry class at my high school at Beacon, and it was very like free verse poetry, and there was no exact like rules to it, and it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I've been writing since I was little, but I never liked poetry into my freshman year of high school, and it was that writing class that kind of propelled that interest. And then later, my church did a spoken word class, and then I fell into the love of the spoken word poetry and speaking my poetry because I came from the theater and acting background and the
Hmm.
monologue background, so it was very easy to bring my voice to spoken word and use my writing and my voice at the same time. So that's kind of what got me into it.
Hmm. So as growing up as a child, was you a shy kid and you really couldn't talk as much, and poetry was it your way of speaking out or what?
So I wouldn't say I was shy. I was very outgoing at times, but because my childhood, like throughout my childhood, I was very bullied. I was bullied throughout my elementary school years and my middle school years, and then I got out of it during high school. But it was but the bullying definitely silenced me. But I was never shy in nature. I was very outgoing and wanted to talk to everybody. But because of the situations that I was put in, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
muted myself and muted my personality a lot. But as far as poetry being an outlet for when I was younger,
Yeah.
I didn't start doing poetry until later in my life. So it was more of like writing short stories, writing like little stories, and like I would pass it around to my classmates, and that's how I would like connect with people by writing my
Mm-hmm.
short stories, writing my songs. I was writing breakup songs at like 8. Don't know why, but I was. But yeah, that's the stuff that I did. It was always a creative outlet. It was either writing short stories, writing
Yeah.
songs, making up dances during recess, or
Mm-hmm.
doing a theater production. Those were my outlets. It was always something creative to get my emotions out and be able to express myself in other ways.
Facts, facts, facts. So now, what kind of style of poetry do you do? Do you have a style? Like, is it like on a basic subject? Like, is it like you know about life, or is it about love, or is it Christianity, or what kind of basic poetry? Do you have a basic poetry, or you just do for anything like whatever come to you from the top of your head?
So obviously, I'm a Christian poet. That's like my basis of everything that I do. Everything that I do has God in it in some way or form or has biblical truths. That's where I strive in. That's my love. But as far as like different subjects, I most of my poems are based on mental health because I like to tell my testimony through a lot of my poems. So a lot of them is based on mental health. My first book is called Midnight Won't Last, which is poems based on mental health issues, being in the midnight season, being in that deep depression, being in that deep pit of isolation. And then
Mm-hmm.
my second book that I came out with recently is called Broken Rose, Poems for the Hurt Child. And all these poems are based upon childhood trauma, things that I went through as a child, um, different
Mm-hmm.
ways that I had to like mute my personality because of the bullying that was going around me. So that's kind of what I write about, either letters to my younger self, or it's about mental health, or about trauma, or about anxiety, depression. But I always try to give hope in my poems as much as I can.
Facts, facts, facts. What would you what kind of advice would you give somebody that's a teenager, um, you know, 20 on down, that's going through bullying right now? What would you give advice? What kind of advice would you give to the person?
I would say one thing I wish I would have done was stand up for myself, and not in an aggressive way, because like I obviously, like if I were to stand up for myself, I wouldn't want to do it aggressively because God tells us to love, and I wouldn't want to come across that way. But knowing my worth, I think it's important that when you're going through those situations to know your worth, and you can't really do that if you don't know who you are in God. So
Facts,
I think it's
facts.
important to know who you are, because at the time when I was getting bullied, I didn't know who I was. So I didn't know that I was worth better treatment. I didn't know that I was worth better. I thought that what was being said to me in the environment that I was in
Mm-hmm.
was something that I deserved. And so I think knowing and understanding that what you're going through, what people are saying to you, how people are treating you is not what you deserve. That's not what
Facts,
you deserve.
facts.
That's a lie from the devil. That's a lie from the enemy that is trying to keep you in that environment, and that's trying to keep you mute and trying to keep you silent. Just because we are called to love people doesn't mean that we have to be silent. Doesn't mean
Facts.
we always have to. Yes, is it good to turn the other cheek sometimes? Yes, but do I also think that we should be silent if we're being treated
No.
the wrong way? No, I don't think that's the case. I think that
Facts.
as Christians, sometimes it's really easy to become mute. It's really easy to become quiet, but God also stated that we should not be mute. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to know your worth
Facts.
and to know that you are worth better than what you are being treated.
Just to add, for me, I think sometimes, bad things happen for two reasons. First reason is, sometimes you have to go through things. Second reason is sometimes the enemy do things because God have a great plan for you, for the
Yes.
person's life. So he will do anything in his power to shut you down. It doesn't matter what it is. And I always say this: um, the greater your suffering is, the greater job God has for you.
Yeah.
Because the enemy does not attack somebody who is not worth anything. Of course,
Hmm.
every human, is worth something. That's not what I'm trying to get to. But some Christians have a gem inside of them, and I'm gonna explain what I mean. As a human, people look at themselves in the mirror as like as you're saying, hey, I am, I'm not worth nothing. That and this, that and this, that and this. But at the same time, you're getting persecuted, you getting slandered, you have attacks coming left and right, down and under, and you don't know, what it is. You don't know what's going on. And mainly, the problem is the enemy sees something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Yep.
And God is letting you, and this go back to the first reason. God is letting you go through this just because he know you can, and he's trying to um you know he's trying to train you for what's to come, because he said he would never let you go through anything that he know you won't be able to handle, and there always will be a way to escape. And so, for people that think they like, I'm not this and that, I'm not good for this, that and this, I have some good news for you. If you think you are, if you are going through something in your life today that seem like, that you are too young to go through, they seem like if you look back for a couple of years and you wondering how in the world I got past that, how in the world I got through that, I have some good news. It's because one reason is God has some big plans for you in this kingdom in this last day and age. And you're going to be probably one of the greatest tools of ministry, that God ever used in this day and age. Because God used a lot of things. He used it by, poetry. He will use it by writing. He will use it by music. He will use it by radio. He will use it by podcasts. He will use it by instruments. And he will use it by, believe it or not, cooking. And it's, like, how in the world can you use, somebody, he have his way. Like, where will you see a big congregation at a music festival or at a place that's giving food out? You see most people at that food out. Come on now.
Yep.
You see most people at that food out. They're gonna be at that food out more than they be at that music place. Okay, so if you're a chef and you know how to cook and you're saved and filled with the Holy Ghost, and that's your ministry, that is your calling, God will use it in a mighty way. Like you can get more people saved than an evangelist does when he travels the world to different countries. Like, bro, like you can really do some mighty work. So God, he's using young people in this day and age, and and I really do believe that there is some strong attack on our youth today that's very strong. And if we don't wake up and start fighting against this evil and praying against this evil that's on
Hmm.
this generation is going to go down very fast, because the enemy is working harder than ever before. He had plans in the get go years ago. Now it's really blooming like a flower, and you see it everywhere. You see it on news, you see it on posters, you hear it on radio, you hear it through songs, you hear it through podcasts, you hear it everywhere. It's everywhere. And if we do not stand up for what's right, and if our young people do not go down the way that their fathers and ancestors went down, we are gonna have this generation is gonna be the most doomed generation ever. But we have a lot of questions today, and we are playing against this. Like, because as a teenager myself,
Mhm.
I see, a lot of things, and when you see that all young people, mainly this, either if they're not going on drugs or they're not becoming murderers or question their identity or what they are,
Mhm.
it's like, how in the world did this came up? Like, how can you be so crazy in this day and age?
Yeah.
But we living in a generation where people gonna call good evil and evil good, bad white, and white bad.
Mhm.
So we definitely need to stand together on this. You got anything to add?
No, I agree with just going back to what you were saying about like how God can really use anything, no matter what talent you have. And something that I've been coming to terms with is that we're not in a time where ministry is just if you're called to ministry, it's not just like you either have a choice of being a pastor, a youth pastor, or a worship leader, or an evangelist. You have other options. Ministry is not just those four things. God uses a bunch of other things. Like you said, cooking for people, that can be a ministry. Doing
Yeah, right.
poetry,
Yeah,
that can be
facts.
ministry. Making a TikTok that spreads the gospel, that's ministry. Anything that
Facts.
you're doing that's from the heart of God, that's through your heart and through the heart of God and in that mindset, that's
Hmm.
ministry. Ministry is about your mindset, it's not about what you're doing. And that's what I think that some people get confused about is that if you're called to ministry, oh, I have to be a pastor, oh, I have to be a worship leader, I have to lead worship every Sunday, I have to preach a message every Sunday. No, that's not
Facts.
ministry. There's
Facts.
people that are called to the pulpit. There's people that are called to the platform. There's people that are called to do that, but there's some people that are called to maybe work the sound booth. That's ministry. To work the sound booth at your church, that's ministry. To work
Facts.
the
Facts.
sound booth at a Christian music festival that's spreading the gospel, that's ministry because you never know the conversation that you're going to have. Us having this conversation right now is ministry because it's going to go out to people. So
Facts. Facts.
thinking about it that way, it really helps that the things that we do daily of like, okay, where's my mindset when I'm doing this?
Facts. Facts. I heard of this story. It was a while back. I don't remember if I know the full story, but I will try to make it into a summary. So basically, um, this lady, she was, I think she was a worship leader in the church. Um, and so things happen, a lot of confusion went in the church, and they told her to step down. And you know, as a Christian, they didn't want to kick her out, so they made her into a janitor. And basically, the whole idea was God wasn't really trying to lower her, but he needed her to be a janitor for a season, not only for her, to just to go through something, but see, he had one person special for her to talk to. And she didn't talk to this person that she was supposed to talk to for about probably a year. But once she talked to that person that she was supposed to talk to, because the person that they were supposed to, no, she was supposed to talk to, they always came in the church at 8. They never really went inside the church. They always listened to the door. But the person always went in after everybody left. And sat in the pulpit, in the seats, and start praying. And one day she finally saw this person and she ministered to him, and the person got saved. Now, everything was all orchestrated by God. Now in the end, she got her job back, and it was a happy ending. But it goes to show that sometimes in your life, God will do something that's very strange in our eyes, and we will not understand what we're going through at that time. But He might have that one special person for you that really needs what you're going to say. Just say from me and you, most people that will, if they will listen to it, they would be teenagers. Most adult will not listen to a teenager, right? Most teenagers will not listen to adults. Fair enough, right? So God will use us to talk to our generation because we look like them, and we can, and they can relate to us, and we can relate to them. And he will use an adult to talk to adults. Now, God, I'm not saying that he won't let it talk to adults. But I'm saying is we, he will put us inside that, that place where we talk to people that are age, because they can be more open and they will listen to us, what we got to say more. Um, because as for a child, most of us, when we hear adults start talking, it's not like, hey, caring, even though they do care. It's kind of like, I would say, judging, but not judging in a type of way. So it's sometimes it's how you say things, the tone you say it, that makes the person, kind of want to listen. If you don't go off, if you don't say it the right way, the person won't really want to listen to you. But it also goes to show that if you're a teenager, they will more like to listen to a teenager more than an adult. But yeah, before you got anything to add before I ask the last question?
No, no, that was really good. I agree to that. I think that it's also important to not minimize our audience too.
No,
Like
no,
you
no,
were
no.
saying that like you never know like who you could reach. So that's
Yeah,
something that I
yeah.
had to like that's something I had
Hmm.
to deal with myself, is that like just because I'm a teenager speaking to teenagers doesn't mean
Well,
that God
yeah.
can use me to speak to older generations. So I think that's
Facts,
also,
facts.
as people who are speaking the gospel and spreading the gospel, it's important to never limit. Obviously, like God gave us a segue to teenagers,
Oh
right?
yeah.
God can like do whatever. He can
Oh,
whatever.
facts.
Yeah.
Facts, facts. No, 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 no. The reason I wasn't saying, and limit us. I was saying like more like, we teenagers were more like they can more, they
Yeah, no, no, I agree.
understand us
Yeah.
better. But yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't saying
yeah.
you
I,
were
I
wrong.
get
I
you.
was just adding that. Yeah.
Yeah. Facts, facts, facts. For our last question, here's a question I just asked everybody at the end of the podcast. For you, what does it mean to be a Christian?
Um, sanity gives me a lot of sanity. It allows me to be less stressed because I know that whatever I'm going through, I can give to God and God will deal with it, and that I don't have to carry it. So I think that yes, Christianity comes with its own burdens, but it's also an honor to be a Christian. It's an honor to be a daughter of the King. It's an honor to be a child of God. It's an honor to be in His family, and I hold that title
Mm-hmm.
strongly because I think
Facts.
that some Christians misrepresent God, and as a Christian, I do my
Most
best
definitely.
to
Mm-hmm.
share what who God really is. Obviously, I can never be God because nobody can be God, but I strive every day to be more like Him and be perfected in Christ every single day. So,
Facts, facts, facts. Um, totally fact, totally facts. Before we leave, just to add, what you were saying is, so basically, most people, most people, before I say that, so for me, to be Christ-like, that's, most, for me, to be a Christian is to be like Christ, right? So if Christ want to do anything, that you're doing, I always say this to everybody, and I always, when I talk, I take my words too. Um, but if you're doing something that Christ want to do, always ask yourself before you do it, will Christ do it? Would Jesus do this? Would he be happy with me? Will he, will he be proud with what I'm doing? Ask yourself that. And also, going back on, you said, for Christianity, what Christianity mean to you is to be, sanity and stuff like that. And you've stated that, we do have burdens, but you can, bring it to God. People always, when I say that, when they say, always ask me that, what is the benefits? And they always say it like that. They just, they try to come out very strongly. And they're like, what is the benefits of being a Christian? If you're going to suffer, why not suffer and have fun doing it? I'm like, that's a very, if you don't really, if you don't think of it and you just hear the question, is like, okay, you know, okay, how could I answer that? So every single time they come up to me, I'm like, listen, picture it like this. Everybody, since the fall of man, we were sinners, right? And we all was doomed, all of us. We was on our way to die. There's no escape. Picture it like this. I told a guy recently to picture this the situation like this. Picture the whole universe, the whole world, everybody in it, on a school bus, going down Death Alley, Death Road. And at the end of Death Road, when it stopped, there was a big hole with fire and stuff like that. But it have it got a couple miles before it goes there. On the way down, you have a lot of bus stops where you can get off, right? And that supposed to represent your salvation in Jesus. Um, for those that doesn't get off, you know where they're going to go. It states the fact is we all was going to go down to a ever burning fire. That's what we all. That was our ticket. But when Jesus stepped in, he gave us a new ticket, and he didn't take the ticket, of sin and death and hell. But if we wanted a new ticket, we could receive it. It's our choice. It's not just, hey, I have this ticket, you're going to take it, you getting off, let's go. I don't care what you say. It's our choice. It's nothing forceful. Those bus stops letting you know, there's the billboards advertising your free ticket to get to heaven, this and that, that and this, that and this. You know, of course, there are going to be, some challenges on the way. But if you have Jesus, you know, you in good hands. But if you don't get off that bus, you're going to be doomed. And for those that didn't get off the train of sin, they are doomed. But for those that did get off the train of sin, yes, they still going through things, but it's easy. And once they get to the end of the road, there's not going to be ever burning fire or a black hole or a ditch that you're going to go into. It's going to be paradise. So if you try to look at it like that, you can kind of get the picture of, you know, the benefits of being a Christian and coming to Christ. If you go to Christ, you know, you will and forever will be his. And that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say today. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to Truthcast Podcast. Until next time, God bless you. See ya.